Just as the filming of Rain Man came to an end, apart from driving shots, my friend Mandy and her husband Brian and their 2 children came to visit me from England. Unfortunately, they'd missed the opportunity to be extras, but they still had a story to tell when they returned to Kent. I'd taken them to a famous 50s-style diner in Beverly Hills called Ed de Bevick's, which had a great atmosphere. The decor was quirky, and the typically American food was served by a cast of characters in retro dress, passing themselves off as waiters and waitresses. It was a fun atmosphere, and Mandy and her family loved it. It was so nice being able to relax, knowing that the doubles for Tom and Dustin were booked and all set to drive the Buick the following day along a desert road between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. However, I felt the need to call my message service on the diner's payphone. Remember payphones? It was 1988, and of course, mobile phones or cell phones hadn't surfaced yet. Anyway, I had a few messages, and the first one was from Tony, who was one of Tom's doubles and would be driving the Buick the next day, or so I thought. He told me that his uncle had died and he had to go to Chicago, so wouldn't be able to work. Oh dear, I was sorry about that, of course, but that was a bit of a problem for me. I had Rob as a backup, though, so I knew I could call him. Except that the next message was from Rob, who said that just in case I needed him tomorrow, he wouldn't be available to work because he'd booked a commercial. Now I was in trouble. I didn't have a Tom Cruise double for the following day. I must admit I definitely had a moment of panic, but I took a deep breath and said a silent prayer as I went back into the restaurant. I was just about to sit down, thinking what on earth I was going to do, when my attention was drawn to a young man sitting in a booth opposite with a girl. Yes, you guessed it. This young man looked a lot like Tom Cruise. His physique was also similar to Tom's, so I approached him. I flashed my MGM business card and explained that I was a casting director on a film called Rain Man, and asked him, Zach, if he was interested in being Tom Cruise's double and drive a Buick tomorrow. What? He said. Then he laughed. You've got to be kidding me, right? His girlfriend said, see, I told you you looked like Tom Cruise. It turns out that they were visiting LA from Idaho and were due to leave a couple of days later. They didn't have any specific plans for the next day, and although Zach was somewhat hesitant, his girlfriend encouraged him to do it. So I explained all the details to him, and he agreed. The rest of my plans with my friend Mandy and family had to change while I made arrangements for Zach to meet a wardrobe assistant and be fitted with one of Tom's jackets. Then I organized the necessary paperwork. He wasn't going to make a whole lot of money, which I think disappointed him, but surely the experience would be worth it. A driver picked me up early the following morning, and then we went to Zach's hotel to collect him and take him to the location, a few miles outside of LA. I was feeling a little nervous that he might have had second thoughts, but I just had to trust that he wouldn't let me down. Fortunately, he was waiting in the lobby with his girlfriend, and I was able to breathe a sigh of relief. It was a bit of a whirlwind, but once we'd arrived and Zach had been introduced to the camera crew, hairdresser, transportation, and of course Dustin's double, I felt confident that it would all go smoothly. There was nothing else for me to do, so I thanked Zach and his girlfriend and hoped they'd have a good time. I did know that they'd have a story to tell when they got home. The driver then took me back to my home in Santa Monica, where my friends were waiting to hear the outcome of this Hollywood casting experience they'd seen firsthand. Unfortunately, it didn't all go as well as I'd hoped. Zach's hair was quite a bit longer than Tom's, and even though they were filming a long shot of Zach driving the car, His hair needed to be trimmed. Well, he wasn't too happy with that. In fact, he refused to have his hair cut at all. So the hairdresser had a challenging time trying to make it look shorter with hairpins. Then, when my Idaho diner discovery saw that the 1949 Buick Roadmaster was a stick shift, he freaked out. He'd only ever driven an automatic car. Naturally, transportation weren't too happy about this, but apparently Zach got the hang of it without ruining this classic, exclusive and expensive car. There did happen to be a couple of extra Buicks standing by for emergency use, but thankfully they weren't needed. I don't think I was very popular with hair and transportation, but it all worked out in the end. Although Zach wasn't as perfect a double as he could have been, he did solve my casting crisis. It's interesting that whenever I felt my back was against the wall, I could always depend on that little angel sitting on my shoulder to come up with a solution. I suppose you could say it's having faith in the unknown, letting go and allowing the universe to take care of a perceived problem. Well, I strongly believe in what the song says. Worry gets you nowhere at all. If you think about it, it's almost as if we're giving up and closing in on ourselves when we worry. We're getting stuck in that dark tunnel of fear and feeling unsupported instead of opening up, moving forward and seeing the light of life's possibilities. You know, it's always up to us how we react to any given situation. We have a choice. So why not choose a positive approach to life's challenges? It's definitely not foolproof, but I'm sure it'll lift your spirit. Rain Man, of course, was a huge success, which was a bit of a surprise to all involved with the film. We didn't think it would be. But the story resonated with the public and gave them an insight into the world of autism, albeit an autistic savant. Of course, in general, those with autism do not have the special abilities that Raymond had. But the film also showed his unique character. He was more than his label. He was a very interesting and lovable human being. I think this was the most important message of the movie. When the film was nominated for several Academy Awards, we were all very excited. But the icing on the cake for me was actually attending the Oscars. Oh, it was such a thrill arriving at the Shrine Auditorium in LA in a stretch limo with my date, Alan Mason, who compiled the music for the film. And also Barry's teenage stepchildren were with us. There were crowds of fans behind barriers who didn't have a clue who we were as we walked the red carpet alongside Tom Hanks and Sigourney Weaver. I'd borrowed a beautiful dress from Beth Grant, who played the mother of the farm kids in the film. It was a black beaded number with a very low back. Gorgeous. Beth always tells people that she's never been to the Oscars, but her dress has. It was great sitting with all the stars, and I seemed to be with the British contingent because Michael Caine and his wife sat in front of me, Sean Connery and his wife were a couple of seats away, and Lynn Redgrave sat behind me. It was interesting going to the bathroom, though, because I was standing in line with all these beautifully dressed women, including Demi Moore, Jodie Foster and Glenn Close, who was heavily pregnant and not too happy that she had to wait her turn. So, everyone has to go to the loo. As you can imagine, it was very exciting when Rain Man won an Academy Award for Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, and Best Actor for Dustin. He generously booked a room in a restaurant in downtown LA for a few of us to go after the ceremony since only nominees were invited to the governor's ball. However, before he and his wife Lisa went to the ball, he came to the restaurant to make sure we were all happy. And of course, he brought along Oscar, which was surprisingly heavy. The film went on to win many more awards, one of which I accepted on behalf of the filmmakers. It was a whirlwind of Hollywood glamour and excitement, an unforgettable time. On the next episode, The Road to Avalon. If you're enjoying my episodes, my social media guru, Horatio, has asked that you please like the recordings, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when I post my next episode on Sunday. Many thanks, and your support is greatly appreciated.